Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. And I'm really pleased to say I'm here with Claire Spence from the Habit Base. Worked with Claire over the last, well, I suppose nearly 2 years, I suppose, getting on to 2 years, year and a half. And I was really looking forward to doing this episode because Claire has very much so the same kind of outlook on health, well, I believe she does, in terms of long-term sustainable health and doing the right thing for people and their long-term health, you know? So I wanted to talk about habits, okay? And what better person to talk about habits than Claire?
Absolutely.
So, Claire, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, pleasure. I wanted to kick this off with what I thought was a powerful question. I don't know, you might think differently, but why do habits matter?
Oh gosh, I think that's
Good one.
right in with that.
Right
No,
in there.
I think habits matter because they allow us to work towards our goals and actually sustain them. They allow us to build routines with them. They allow us to create the plan that builds longevity. And I think without habits, we don't actually change our lifestyles, nor do we actually kind of achieve our goals in the process.
Mm. Yeah, massive. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think there was a reason why I asked you that and put you on the spot there because I thought that's the answer I was going to get. And I completely agree. I feel that a lot of people have this idea, and this is really powerful for coaches such as ourselves that help people predominantly online. Is I think a lot of people have this idea that if I do this thing that someone has told me to do, then I get this outcome. Yeah.
Mhm.
But really, what we're trying to do is empower people by making real change, not drastic change, because that is prescribing something, it's not long term, but empowering people to make long term change. And that comes from, it doesn't come from prescription, but it comes from education and real change, which is where habits and aligned habits come in.
Absolutely. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong is they think when they're working towards a goal that they have to change their whole entire life overnight and really adopt, as you kind of said, something that doesn't fit their reality. And as such, it's so much harder to maintain long term. Yes, you could probably maintain it for maybe 1, 2, even 3 months, but the long term game, it's going to suddenly break apart because you've changed your life completely overnight. And habits allow us to create that process of building up slowly, taking yourself from where you're currently at and then start working towards almost like who you want to be and where you want to be and your goals. But a lot of people, I think, look at habits and almost think, oh, well, that's too easy. That's almost stupid it being so simple, but that's what it should look like. I always say to women, if you're working towards changing your lifestyle, you have a weight loss goal, if you've changed your life overnight, it's not going to stick. It should feel like almost everything is quite similar. There's just small little things you're making a difference in.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And then what comes with that is you're not looking for perfection. You're just looking for the majority of the time, are you doing this thing? Like it's not perfection because that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. That's not sustainable. And that really helps people to realize that, oh, wow, that's powerful because I don't have to make these lifestyle shifts, huge shifts to achieve this. If I just keep doing these two or three things that are manageable, it's the domino effect, isn't it? That's where it leads. It will lead you to eventually to the outcome that you're working towards. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think that's really powerful for people to hear because yeah, I just think we are stuck in and if we look at like social media and what we're consuming, it can seem like it is that way. Like recently, I've had these thoughts like, what do people actually think that success looks like and what it takes? And if we would take a snapshot of the information that we're receiving, for a lot of people through social media, it's like if you're not doing a high rocks or running a marathon, like then you're not really training. Right? It feels that way. If you're not fasting for at least 12 hours, then you're failing on your nutrition or you're eradicating carbs or fats from your diet, you know.
Yep.
And I think it's so powerful in these days to realize that that just isn't, that's just not, you're seeing a snapshot in someone's life that they're probably doing for 6 months or something, and then something happens, you know.
Absolutely. This is something I don't have a problem with, but I definitely feel it on Instagram just now. The whole high rocks, ultra marathon, Ironman, like we have to be doing all these things. And if we're not doing that, then we're not doing something. When in fact, I almost think like the boring basics are actually what we need to do. And because they're not being shown, people disregard them very, very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know about you, but you know, when I start working with a client, it's almost like when I hit that send button or send that video over, you know, where we want to start, what does that actually look like? Almost the part of me goes, are they going to think that this is it? Like, I was like, yeah, this is all we need to do for now. Like, can we just do these things really well, pretty consistently, you know, 80% of the time? And then you know, I say it's almost like, and most people are looking for the doorway. So they're in the dark and they're just like feeling for like the door and they can't find it. And all we're trying to do is just show them the doorway to go in. And then they're able to like, ah, okay, now that will lead me here. Or that's a new habit that I can start to implement. But we can only start implementing that thing if we had just kind of started doing this just what feels the basics. You
Absolutely. And I think like you're kind of hitting the nail on the head. It's opening the door. And it's something I think as well that people don't realize, like as coaches, we're always trying to set people up for success.
know?
We've worked with so many people. And we know what it's like. We've probably been back in the day, dishing out meal plans, seeing people do these things. We've got a lot of experience here and we've grown and we've learned from everything. And I
Yeah.
think the most important thing is when you're working with a client is that you want to always be setting them up for success. And that normally looks like doing, as you said, like, is that it? Is that all I'm doing? Because
Mm,
the worst thing that you can do is if you're working towards, again, changing your lifestyle, a weight loss goal, is make the plan too hard and then have to regress because instantly you feel that disappointment. You feel like you can't achieve. And then you just start telling yourself those stories again, and you're
mm,
more likely to quit. Therefore, if we use habits and we start to build them up like small and each month grow on them, and you see success, then all of a sudden you're building self trust with yourself. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is different than before. I'm actually maintaining this. Then you
mm,
believe, then you build momentum, and then you can go from there. But the worst thing I see is people starting off and being like, well, no, I can do 6 workouts a week. I can track everything 100% perfectly. I'm not going to have any takeaways, no alcohol. And it's just completely changed. And they're setting themselves up for failure again
mm,
and again, rather than thinking, okay, how can I just do that small incremental start so I can feel the success? Because we know when we feel more positive, it's going to build momentum, and then momentum helps build more actions from it.
absolutely. And I did write down the quote from James Clear that I'm sure, pretty sure most of us would have heard before. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I think that's very connected with what we're talking about here. I think people set a goal, and that might be a goal that's deep in true intention, like it means something really resonates with them. Very important. Like, you know, we can hear people say, look, I just want to be able to be active with my kids and be around for my kids, set a good example for my kids, be a role model. I want to be able to show up for the people that I care for. You know, I want to care for people. But you can set that ultimate goal, but if you haven't got systems in place or habits, you're just it's just hoping, isn't it? You're like, I just hoping if I just do this thing, then I will get there. Like, you know?
When you said that, I was like, hope isn't a strategy. The amount of
Yeah.
times that I say that to people. And it
Yeah.
really is because we have all these wild ambitions and great goals that we want to do, but for some reason, potentially even we find in other aspects of our life, we can be great at planning and structuring as to how we get there. But for some reason with health and fitness, I fully believe we just think, oh, well, I've set that goal, so I just can achieve it. I should be able to do this. I should be able to do that.
Mm,
Rather
mm,
than, as you said, creating the systems in order to get there. Because if we vaguely say, as we said, like, okay, want to be more active, specifically, what does that look like? It might be like, okay, well, I need to lose maybe 20 pounds in that process. I want to have a better relationship with food, reduce food noise and that. And it's like, okay, well, how? Like, how are you
mm,
going to get there? What do you need to do? And it's
mm,
almost like even like that's the big goal. It needs to be broken down into like a sub goal. And then from there, you then create the habits that can take you to move forward towards that goal. But I think in the health and fitness industry, we sort of lose that. And we just don't think we think of the goal and we're like, oh, we'll just hope we get there, rather than really thinking, okay, I need to break this down as I
mm.
would probably in other aspects of my life if I had a goal. Like if we were thinking about work, normally I use that quite a lot. You know, at work,
Yeah,
you wouldn't just hope you were going to deliver a presentation. You would break it all down, plan it, and be ready to prepare, like present it on the day.
absolutely. And with that comes a great empowerment because then you are learning these skills and this awareness to kind of have positive impact on your life, the people around you, the immediate people around you, because they're only going to benefit from this journey and this willingness to implement sustainable habits. They're going to benefit from it as well, you know. So, and I was thinking, I talk a lot about identity. When I say identity, are we, is that the same as habits? Because it feels for me like when we're trying to work towards a goal, it is like I'm creating, what does that identity look like? Is that it's the same, isn't it? Is that the same like that we're talking about as habits?
I think so. It's almost like self-identifying habits. Like maybe for you, people would look at you as, oh, John's the guy that goes to the gym. Or Claire's the one that is really into health and fitness. And I almost think when we look at habits, they are part of us. They're who we become. And a really, actually, just on that topic, a really great thing to do is when we're starting off is to start to think about our future self. I love doing this with clients when they start. It's like, who is your future self? And what does she look like? What habits does she do? Because sometimes I think when we're trying to change our life, we don't know who that future self is. Therefore, they're a fully a stranger. Therefore, it's really hard to envision where we want to do or where this habit fits in. And if we actually start to think, okay, what is like, who do I want to be? I want to be someone who goes to the gym. I want to be someone who looks after themselves. I want to be someone that will do hard things. I go out for walks and things. And then once we know like who we want to be, we can then start to look at where we're at now and how again you create that process to get there. So I think that's a really rounded way of saying like I fully believe our habits are our identity because
Yeah.
they become so ingrained in everything we do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think I think they're just so intertwined, like the habits are your identity, create the outcome that you're working towards. So with all that in mind, then Claire, if someone's listening to this, where could they start? Obviously, working with a coach such as yourself.
Mhm.
But if someone is at a place where they know that they need to make a change, but they know it can't be this, they don't want it to be this life-changing shift that's going to pull them out of doing anything that they find joyful in their life and is short-lived. Where would they start, specifically around like habits and making a change?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think it's something a lot of people struggle with as well. And I would say that first thing you need to do is you need to look at what you're currently achieving and what you're currently doing. You know, if you know that goal and where you want to be, you need to see where you're at now and create awareness around that. And if we're simply looking at like maybe health and fitness side, I would be thinking, okay, how much movement am I doing on a day-to-day basis? And what does maybe my nutrition look like? You know, again, with habits, you can go so deep into looking at these things. But if we look at it from a very kind of high level, surface level view, we think, okay, well, maybe how much steps am I doing? How
Hmm.
many days am I working out? And potentially like what I would just say, what does my nutrition look like? And maybe the answer to that one is, I don't know. So, okay, that's
Mm,
something we need to figure out. And then I would be thinking again, if we break it down into those three categories, if I don't work out at all, I maybe commit to, can I just do 10 minutes once a week? We want to think about keeping it super small, not plunging in, oh, I'm going to do three, six workouts, because you want to maintain this in a year's time, and
mm,
you want to be able to deal with this on the messiest of days. So I'd be saying to you as well, looking at your steps, if you currently do like 4,000 steps, could you maybe do 5,000 steps a day?
mm.
Just think about a small implement. And then with nutrition, get a bit of paper, get a pen, start just writing down and creating awareness, because I think with nutrition, a lot of people don't know what they're consuming on a day-to-day basis. And you can go further and start working on things like MyFitnessPal to create that awareness. But I think sometimes just a pen and a paper is the simplest option, just to write down everything and see. And the likelihood is you'll probably still miss things, but you then can look at your main meals and think, okay, can I add more vegetables? That's probably going to serve a hell of a lot of people, just doing something as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important that people realize that this is not from a uh, a judgment
No.
point, because I think a lot of people could do that. They go, well, that's rubbish and that's rubbish. So that makes me a bad person. And, I know I need to be doing better, but I just can't. And then they judge themselves. And I think people need to realize if they do what you've just said there, Claire, they're doing the work. That's what the real work is, and just and just being what I call like just being mindful of like, oh, that's interesting. So I do 2,000 steps. Could I do four? Could I do three? And going, do you know what? I think I could if I just made this a slight adjustment to where I park the car to go to work, or can I take a longer walk with the dog, or whatever it may be. So it's really important, I think, that people don't come at it as a judgment point. It's being curious and the willingness to learn and grow from. I think that's important.
Absolutely. And within that as well, it's something I say to women all the time is, how would you react if you were to remove all emotion around that?
Mm,
As it
mhm,
would just be purely factual. And that's exactly what you just said. It's like, I walked 2,000 steps today. Cool.
mm,
Okay, so can I get to four? And when humans are emotional beings, and it's normally our emotions that really trip us up. But if we just were to remove that, then to ask ourselves, if I didn't have emotion here, what would that mean? And then you would just
mm.
data, and data would become facts, and it would be easier said than done. But I think you just highlighted a really great point that we're so judgmental. I was about to use a rude word there, but we are judgmental. And if we could actually just be a bit lighter to ourselves, we've got enough tough things going on in our lives, undoubtedly, that we don't need to be an a-hole to ourselves in the process. So if we were just a bit more compassionate to ourselves, it would help us out in the long term.
Yeah, I think that comes from us stopping what something that's I think, got worse in recent times. And again, you don't want to keep blaming like social media for everything, but like I think comparing yourself to what you perceive everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
So if you are doing 2,000 steps and your best friend or someone that you know at work is doing a high rocks or running a marathon, or something big, it can seem, well, it's just so insignificant. So what's the point?
Mhm.
Like, and if you keep coming from it, like from that place, I think you just stay stuck, you know. Um, if you keep taking that snapshot of what you're seeing on social media, you'll always stay stuck. So I think, yeah, we have to be willing to go, where am I? Where am I at? And what's just the most smallest, manageable next step? What does that look like? And be willing to take it, you know?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, something's better than nothing. And
Mm,
the more times you do that little thing, the more it's going to compound. And before you know it, you'll probably be further ahead than if you let that frustration or the comparinitis, and like I always call it that when we compare ourselves to people, but a flip of the switch is, well, how can I use that person to inspire me to do that little thing? Because the likelihood is that person started off in the same place with that little thing. and they've
Mm,
just grown and grown and grown over the years. Like it's so difficult to compare ourselves to someone else because we don't know anything about them. We don't know anything about their journeys, where they started. And equally on social media, is it even real, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So we've looked at like why habits are so important. They're bringing out your true ultimate self, leading you towards at some point the feelings and emotions and the quality of life that you're working towards, the outcome.
Mhm.
We've also, you know, it, highlighted how they don't need to be these massive shifts. But what have you found, Claire, are the biggest things that stop people? You use the word emotions just. So, like, what have you found are the biggest things that stop human beings and like almost kind of like, tend to push them off track? Like, what's the things that get in the way? What have you seen?
Shiny magpie syndrome.
Okay.
Well, I think, like, as we say, emotions make it really hard to stick to our habits because our emotions, a lot of us, I think, as well, being British, we suppress a lot of our emotions and we don't know what to do with them. So instead, it comes out a lot. And I think with habits, we let our mood dictate a lot of the times what we
Mm,
want to do. And I think sometimes with habits, it depends. Like there's a lot of different things. If we're talking about emotional eating, I probably wouldn't put in that category. But if we're talking about general habits about going a walk or something, normally it's, oh, well, I can't be bothered or I don't have motivation to do it. And I think sometimes we need to take, I say in the habit base, like we bin the word motivation. It's not allowed because
mm,
we're never waiting for motivation. Sometimes we do just have to pick ourselves up, dust off and get the stuff done that we actually don't want to do. And I think that's using that fierce self-compassion. But then there's also the other time where we do have to say, actually, I'm ill, maybe I can't do this, and it's a little bit difficult. But with habits, as I say, I think the biggest thing, as you said, is that kind of emotional side that can make us tip over. And that's when as well, that's why we want to build habits because then they come almost on autopilot. And we
mm.
do them without realizing, so emotions doesn't kind of tap into that. So that sort of answer that because we can go. There's probably so many different ways we could use specific
Yeah.
examples and dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah. I think why don't we look at if you want to like the emotional eating because I get that a lot. We've worked with many people over the years and emotional eating. John, I don't know why I can't just eat a cookie. I have to eat a bag of cookies. Like, so where do you feel that comes from and how can we help people to not just eradicate it because that's just something that's going to take work. Like that's going to take a lot of work. But where's that coming from?
Well, number one, I think sometimes with emotional eating, and not a lot of us have the awareness around it. Sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it. It's mindless, or we're just on autopilot, or we've actually turned it into habit, when we're feeling a specific way. And if we think about our habits, we normally have kind of the cue, the behavior, and the reward.
Mm.
And a lot of people get to the point where they can identify the behavior, like, oh, I eat when I'm sad, or I eat because of this. But what I often find is we then try and change that. We just go, well, I shouldn't eat this and I shouldn't eat that and I shouldn't this. And it's just a lot of telling ourselves to do something without actually looking at the two sides of it and trying to change it, like figuring out what the cue is and what it's actually bringing to us. And the
Mm.
more we can start to go into that in more depth, the more we can help ourselves because the truth is, with emotional eating, the likelihood we are bored, we are stressed, we are anxious, we are overwhelmed, maybe we're tired. All those are five different emotions. Therefore, they have five different feelings, like and attachments to, kind of with it and reward systems from it. Therefore, if we're trying to change emotional eating and use the same thing for all these, it's not going
Yeah,
to work. So I think for people going into something like emotional eating, if they know they're emotional eating, when is it happening?
yeah,
Where is it happening? And what are you feeling at the time? Because then you can understand that trigger. Then it's asking yourself, what do I actually need? And this is where, as I was saying before, like us Brits, we're terrible with our emotions. We don't actually like to identify what they are and how we can help ourselves. We just put it under normally this big blanket of, oh, I'm stressed or I'm tired.
yeah,
But
yeah,
again, the more we can break it down, the more that we can think, what do I actually need in this moment? Because a habit serves us it doesn't mean it serves us in a positive way. It can serve us in a negative way. So we need to start thinking, what do I actually need to serve this emotion and how to change it? And that's quite an in-depth way of looking at it. But I always think when we talk about emotional eating, people stick up here and they're like, don't go in the kitchen, don't eat that, don't this. And it's behavioral change that we need to bring in, almost using kind of
Yeah.
that habit loop. That makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And again, it's that willingness to just be curious about,
Yeah.
oh, here's what is that? Like,
Mhm.
what is that? Is that my stress? Am I feeling stressed? I'm feeling stressed.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's leading me to do what exactly? Oh, it's to go into the kitchen and get the thing or whatever it may be, or get an Uber Eats or whatever it may be. And I think that terminology that you used, I use it all the time. Like, what is it that I truly need? And it's very important that you use that terminology exactly, and it's what you need and not what you want, because that'll just take you to whatever you desire in that moment, you know. So it's what you need. Um, and then I think it's again, then you're in a really powerful place to go, that's interesting. What is it that I need? And then you can start to come up with all these other, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong here, Claire, but opportunities to create new and more aligned habits with that aligned to the outcome, the goal, how you want to lead your life.
Absolutely. For example, if weight loss is the goal, you're currently overeating, you can identify, say, maybe that, okay, loneliness is causing me to overeat. Therefore, maybe implementing something like when I feel like this, I'm going to phone my friend because then it's not food's becoming the reward. And then you're taking away that little aspect of overeating. I mean, that's a very simplified version of that, but then you can see how that's going to help you because probably a lot of things that stop people getting towards sustaining a lifestyle or getting towards their weight loss goals, things like this. It normally is emotional eating, and we
Hmm.
all struggle with it. We've probably all struggled at some point with it, but it's something that you have to take time as well to address. It's not just, okay, I'm going to hit 6,000 steps, I'm going to do this. It takes a
Yeah.
little bit more work, which I think is the challenge for people.
Yeah, I think it's the willingness to kind of like, it's like the gym. So it's like flexing a muscle at the gym. Like if you want that muscle to grow, then you've got to train it. And I think this is very similar to that. It's like if you go into it with the idea that I'm going to do this mindfulness thing that John and Claire has talked about, and I'm going to nail it. It's like, that's very unhuman. That's you're not a robot. You've got to be willing to kind of like learn from it, go and flex it again, have a go, and keep coming back to it when those feelings and emotions arise. Because here's the thing, like we've got to know that they are going to arise again. It's not like you're trying to eradicate the trigger, i.e., stress or overwhelm or uncertainty or whatever it is. It's like knowing that that's going to happen again and again and again and again. But you're building up this ability to be mindful and go, what is it that I truly need in this moment?
Absolutely. You got to put the reps in. And I
Yeah.
think we do it in the gym. Like if we wanted to squat 100 kilograms, we'd be showing up consistently, putting in the reps, and that would be the main event. It's the same with emotional eating. It's like when you are stressed and you're feeling all those things, that's the main event. But you got to practice it before you get there so you know exactly what to do. It's like you've rehearsed it. So
Yeah.
in that moment, you can go from there. And equally, this is where things like looking at your week, going back to our systems at the very beginning, this is where looking at your week and thinking, okay, it's going to be a very stressful week. If it's going to be a stressful week, I know I'm more likely to stress eat. Therefore, every single day I need to be mindful of this habit that's going to help me. And as you said, that outcome of the feelings.
Yeah. And that again, like from week to week, you're not on autopilot. You're shifting and you're changing with whatever's going on. And that's where I feel like true empowerment comes and your ability to move towards your goals happens because you have that pliability, like you have that ability to shift depending on what life is asking from you. And then you're in a completely different ballpark then when, from a diet or something that is very, very restrictive or short term, you know.
Absolutely. This is why, as well, most people fail is because they can't do exactly what you've just said. It's almost like they have that all or nothing mentality, which you can sustain even for 6 to 12 months. But at the end of the day, life is going to have stressful periods and have unstressful periods, and you have to learn to like ride the wave of life, I would say.
Mm.
People normally quit when it gets too tough rather than thinking, okay, how can I reduce this down? How can I take this up a little bit? And that's even like, again, I use weight loss quite a lot. This just because what I do. And
Mm.
even with weight loss, I say to women, sometimes in the real life situation, sometimes it's not going to be the same every week. It might be a little bit less because your priorities have to shift. It might be a little bit more because you have that like cleaner week ahead as such. And the more we can get used to riding this wave, the more that all or nothing mindset disappears and far more likely to sustain this for life rather than
Mm.
just a year or six
Yeah,
months or 3 months.
yeah. You know, one of the most powerful conversations I like having with clients is like, when they say, "Oh, next week, John, like work's crazy. I've got a few nights out and with work, and don't know how I'm going to negotiate through those meals at restaurants and just to be able to go, that's interesting. So, how do you think it needs to look, or would
Yeah.
like it to look?" Because that's what it's all about. Because then when you start asking yourself a powerful question like that, you can then start to go, okay, so is the gym actually the thing that I'm going to be doing next week with all that? It's like, probably not, but
Mhm.
that's okay. Like, because there's going to be other things that you are going to be able to maintain. Like, are you going to be able to look ahead before you get to that restaurant, make a mindful decision before you get there? Yeah, I can. Yeah, absolutely. Are you able to have water with your meal just to slow any drinking that you're doing down? Yeah, okay. Are you able to like go for a walk before that meeting that you're in? Yeah, okay. So then they're in this again powerful position to really envisage what those challenges are going to bring and how they can shift, you know.
Absolutely. And I think that's our maybe the most powerful thing we can do is almost sometimes people think, yeah, that's just so unrealistic. That's all I can do and I have to do it. And I think the power of us being there is, if we're thinking, how simple can we make this? And
Mm,
what are 3 things that we bring in next week that are actually going to serve you to keep you moving forward? People almost are like, what? I never even thought that that could be possible. And
mm.
and I guess that's the power of having someone that can ask you these questions and help you out rather than just as such giving a plan and saying, well, you have to follow it under any circumstances.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I've got clients currently is come back from like a travel trip with work to South Africa, and she's come back and she's like, everything's good. Like this is the first time this has ever happened where I've been able to go on a plane, go away for a week, eat out at restaurants, have some wine, come back, and actually, I'm in a really good place. I'm all good, So, yeah, it can be done. It can be done just by being mindful and knowing that this is life and you're going to have to shift. So,
Yeah. I think that's amazing for your client. And I will just add in here as well, there is no shame in regressing habits and pulling things back, turning things up. Like it's just learning again to ride that wave, find that flow, and realize that, and maybe this is a big part you find as well, John, is that failure is feedback. I almost want to say perceived failure because there's never any failure. You cannot fail this. But
mm,
if we could use hiccups as feedbacks, then we use them
yeah.
to adapt.
Yeah, I always say there are opportunities like that's so that challenge of that weekend or that's an opportunity. Like if you frame it like that, it's like, what do you mean it's an opportunity to learn? Like this is not going to be perfect. What can we learn from this experience? What can we take away from that? Because when that thing happens again, you will have the awareness and the skills and the tools to go, going to shift this a little bit. I'm going to make this
Yeah.
movement here. And yeah, it's okay. So yeah, it's really, really, really powerful. Amazing, amazing. Anything else that you want to bring to the conversation, Claire?
One last thing, and I think this is always nice for people to hear, but what habits do you have just now or stick to?
Nice. Yeah, nice. Do you want me to go first? So for me, again, so really depends on what my day looks like. So I'm doing some in-person coaching at the moment, so that can be really early. So it depends on what's going on. But for me, my mornings are really kind of sacred. So I like to make sure that I'm waking up and my morning is quiet. And I know that can be difficult for a lot of people if you've got kids and stuff like that. But for me, I like to make sure it's quiet. I move my body, whether that's in the garden, around the house, or just doing something like that. I like to hydrate, spend some time with Alice. Like that's like the something that I like to do, that gets me, I can rely upon. It's something that's going to support me. And then we get out with Arthur and we go for a walk, and that's almost like, yeah, and kind of like a non-negotiable habit that I do. I also then go for a walk in the day. So after our conversation here, we're going to go back out again, and I think if I can have that powerful morning of just some space, some stillness, if I can have those 2 moments of going for a walk with Alice or Arthur, then I know there's a good chance I'm going to be mindful of the other decisions I'm going to have to make in the daytime. That makes sense.
Absolutely. So interesting, John, because ours are almost the same. Like I was like one of the things for me is I am very big on do not disturb on my phone. I never used to be, and I think over the past few years, my boundaries are so important, and that's been a big thing. So I actually don't. My phone's on do not disturb till like 8 o'clock, and I will not go on my phone because as soon as I'm on my phone, it dictates my day. And if I see something I don't want to see, I've let that happen. I have ownership over that. So I'm very big on my phone not being on. And then I always start the day with movement because movement is medicine. And I sometimes think people really have the wrong mindset towards movement. I think movement can set that tone for your day. And I'm
Mm.
very big on normally I work out, but if I'm not working out, I go outside and get steps in. I normally meet actually a friend on a Wednesday morning all the time and we go a walk together. But
Yeah.
I fully agree it sets like that tone for the day. Morning movement is so important. And then very similar to you, I always weirdly, even after all these years, I always say 6,000 steps minimum a day. But the only reason for that is because I know I need to get up throughout my day. Like when you work for yourself, it's so easy to get lost in
Yeah.
tasks
Yeah.
and miss lunch or do things like that. So I actually have my habit is 6,000 steps, but I block it down into chunks where I know lunchtime, I always go out for a 30-minute walk. After something that's quite like labor intensive, I'll go outside for 15 minutes. And it's amazing how much I think being outside in nature can really help and I realize not everyone has that luxury to
Mhm.
do so, but even 5 minutes outside can really help our headspace. And I think a lot of my habits over the years, a lot of it used to be about aesthetics and pushing ourselves in that way, and now it's really about my mental health, my
Yeah.
headspace, how I can keep functioning throughout the day. Like that's kind of what I like my habits being there for now.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that. Definitely look towards those foundationary, like I like to call them, things that can happen, that can still happen even in the most busiest of moments. You can still, like you said, get out for a 5-minute walk in between meetings, get that natural light into your eyes. I'm able to create a nourishing meal, whether that is me out and about, going into a shop and just grabbing some protein, some color, some carbohydrates, some fats, and just putting it together. Um, yeah, and I think the other one that I always like to do, and doesn't always happen, but it's just like um, just finding a bit of stillness, you know, just find a bit of stillness. Just that's 5 minutes of just disconnecting. You can call it meditation if you want, or you can call it, breath work, or whatever you want. But I think stillness is really important, particularly when we're so bombarded by so much information and distraction. If we can find some stillness, just settling yourself down out of your head into your heart, I think then you'll find that your energy comes up, your focus comes up, your decision making from that becomes much more aligned. So there's more likelihood you're going to do the habits that align to your true ultimate self, you know.
Absolutely. And I
So
think So funny. We could do a whole other podcast on that
Yeah,
about
yeah,
being
yeah.
still, but it's something that definitely I find the women I coach really struggle to find that stillness. And even myself, I've learned over the years that it's of most important that we have this downtime and recovery. And as you said, like connection. And one way, this is for all my gals who do skincare stuff, because building skincare habits is like building health and fitness habits. Let me tell you, John. I say the same thing. But one thing I find really useful is I have an LED mask because
Okay.
apparently they're very good for your skin, but it's 8 minutes. And I decided that 8 minutes every single day, I had to sit by myself in silence in my own room. And that became my quiet time. And that was mainly because I struggle to switch my brain off. Like when as soon as I hear the word meditation, I get a bit like, oh gosh, I'm not sure
Yeah,
about that.
yeah,
Like that sort of vibe. So I tried to just pair it with something else that could lend almost like lend a hand into the goal as such. And
yeah.
I found that was really useful. So one for all my skincare gals, because we've probably all got an LED mask somewhere.
You know, you're addressing two things at once there, aren't you? The stillness and the skincare. That's great.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Listen, could keep speaking with you for hours, Claire. I think there's a lot in there that people can take away and implement straight away without too much upheaval and find very powerful. Okay, so I appreciate our conversation, and hopefully we'll have some more throughout the year. That'll be amazing. Most importantly, though, where can people find you, Claire?
Oh, they can find me on Instagram, just underscore the habit base. And that's probably the best place.
Brilliant. Awesome. Great. We'll speak again soon. I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much for having me.